And I have no idea what to talk about today. So I thought I might discuss some issues that I think are very relevant and important. Number one, this is an amazing moment in time for all of us because we have a community here that has members from many other countries. There's a community in Canada, in Ottawa, which I'm sure il y a des personnes de Québec, ou I'm sure there are other. Ah, merveilleux. So this is one of the first times that we have two different communities who practice Tai Chi that we haven't really interacted with, and yet we have a commonality with the form and the structure that we are all learning and trying to practice and learning about. And it's a very important time because we need the connection of communities to communities who have the same language and the same focus and looking to understand and grow and learn from the same source, Mr. Moy. And it's a very important time because if we're isolated as a community, it becomes difficult to search for answers to issues and questions that inevitably come up in our practices. And yet, if we have this form of connection between communities, I like to call it a banyan tree. The source root is Mr. Moy, and the aerial branches which plant their own trunks spread out around the world and have a variety of different expressions, but at the source, it's the form, the angle, the stretch. It's actually the movement of the body within the 5 animal forms that bind us together. Okay, so I thought I might talk a little bit about a talk I just gave at McGill in March to the Alan Edwards. I was invited to the Ron Melzack lecture series on pain management and Tai Chi, Qi Kung and pain management, because it deals with a lot of the basis of what we're practicing and what we're learning. So if we can go through some of the slides. I don't know how much time I'm supposed to take up here, but one of the things, and is constantly an issue for us, is people come with problems. The most common problem is low back pain. But people come with issues of arthritis. They come with issues of chronic fatigue syndrome, with multiplicity of issues, and look to Tai Chi as an intervention to help them. Tai Chi falls under the banner of a complementary medicine, not an alternative medicine. An alternative medicine is a medicine that replaces our allopathic Western medicine. Tai Chi is not meant to do that. Tai Chi is meant to be an additive, an adjunct, something to help us in addition to the medicine that's available to us. So it's a complementary medicine. But the difficulty in understanding and merging the two processes are the difficulties of defining what Tai Chi is. So I call it, for the people in Ottawa, they probably know of Hugh McLennan, the Canadian author, who wrote this wonderful book called Two Solitudes. And it was the parallel but distinct differences and separation of French versus English in Canada, Quebec specifically. So it's a very realistic analogy for the two solitudes of traditional medicines as the allopathic medicines versus complementary and perhaps alternative medicines. Next slide. So what we're practicing in terms of Mr. Moy's Tai Chi is essentially consistent with the Western medical concept of mass energy and distillation, steam, spirit. And the way it's constructed in the Chinese philosophy and what Mr. Moy has taught us is that we have the separation that begins after the Big Bang, and we have a polarization that creates a tension and life. That tension and polarization is what life is formed from, which is the yin-yang in the Chinese. And then from that polarization comes life, the three treasures, the composition. In Western medicine, when we have an ovum and a sperm that create a fetus, that begins to divide into cellular, and there are only three cellular levels to that growth that gives rise to all of us. There's an endothelium, there's a mesothelium, and there's a epithelium. And from those three layers comes the billions of different cells that we have in our body. Similarly to the three treasures, the Jing, Qi, and Shen. The mass is the Jing, the Qi is the energy, the Shen is the distillation of the energy on the substance. But these also flow in the body, and they are, there's a relationship between these internal things that create us and the external world, the five elements from the Chinese perspective of the external world. In the time of Hippocrates, the origin of Western medicine, there were 4 elements, but the 5 elements are important externally because we have organs that have a relationship to each of those elements. And those 12 organs are called the Zhang Fu theory, half of which are yin, half of which are yang organs. And so there is a consistency and a similarity between 2 various systems of thought, the West and the East, TCM, Chinese medicine, Qigong. And the essential difference is the West, from the time of Hippocrates, started the concept of causality. The interest is in what is causing the dysfunction or the symptom versus the Eastern approach, the Chinese approach, which is what is the balance of interrelationship, and then have developed and separated since the time of Hippocrates over the years. That concept of patterns of interrelationship comes from a mythical character, the Yellow Emperor, and his classic of internal medicine. Next slide. And for those of you who have seen this, it shows a real difference between West and East. On the left-hand side of the slide, we have here multiple points that are related to the gate control theory of pain, to the concept that pain has an on-off switch. And those on-off switch are at various posts in the spinal canal and above into thalamic areas. That's an old surgical approach versus the stele at the White Cloud Temple in Beijing of what that whole life is. You look at it, and the top part of the, I don't know if the camera can pick this up, but we have here 3 danqians. We have the lower danqian, the fertilization, we have the middle danqian, and we have the upper danqian, all having gates for entry. So what we're doing in practice, and I'm sure they're doing it similarly in Ottawa, is we're stretching open the gates to allow the waters, the liquid substance, to flow into the Dantian, which then get circulated around. In certain sequences with certain timings, the end product is to purify it as you would distill a whiskey or something. It distills and purifies and it's smaller, and it distills and it becomes smaller. And there is a definite path and system that's at work here. Next slide. And the next slide. So I thought it might be interesting that this esoteric concept of Jing, Qi, and Shen, of how do you purify the spirit, would be of interest. So I'm going to ask you, and if I have no idea where Ottawa is, I need a compass to point in the right direction. What's Qi? Someone tell me what Qi is. What is intrinsic energy? We definitely are, but I don't know what it is. So there's a statement and a question from G, who asked me what intrinsic energy is. I don't know the answer, but I know of a Western correlation of energy. We have here, in terms of, before we get to that answer, we have here mass, Jing, the whole human body that has cellular mass is Jing. We have energy, Qi, which cannot be created nor destroyed. And we have here Shen, which, as written there, cognitive structures are developments, they're a differential of biological regulations. And it's a concept in psychology. So the same concept of nothing can be created nor destroyed, just altered in form, goes through the Western concepts in a parallel fashion. Next slide. Here's a description of Qi from a Western perspective. There's light, electromagnetic, radiation, heat, mechanical, motion, gravitational, electrical, elastic, sound, chemical, nuclear, and atomic. And there are many more. But these are really the basic panoply of energy with their appropriate equations by their side. Qi is like that two-solitude separation between East and West. This is the Western concept of how we break energy down to understand different parts of it. Qi is the totality of all these energies, from a subatomic to atomic to molecular to nuclear, all the way up to what's listed on the slide. And so once again, it's the causality, to break down different causalities into a pattern of interrelationship called Qi. Next slide. And the next one. Just go through these. Keep going. Good, stop here. So not only is it a physical product, not only have we spent yesterday and today with the 5 animals learning how to stretch the spine, how to sit, how to have opposites, to fill and to empty at the same time, to stretch and retreat and relax at the same time. Not only is it a physical level that we have all been learning the last couple of days, but it's also a conceptual, imagined level. And so Ron, who's the founder of the gate control theory along with Wall in the 1960s, who was my first mentor, describes the neuromatrix, that you And this is the entry not only into the gate control theory, but the establishment of a chronic disease process, of a chronic pain, that you get and are able to form because of various inputs and stimulation, a concept of what your body is, and that remains fixed. And so if a pain lasts, a low back pain, for example, lasts for a period of time, it becomes your perceived norm of what your body is and becomes very difficult to change because it's part of your matrix. Next slide. Okay, don't look at the slide. I'll get to that in a second. So part of Tai Chi and part of learning what Mr. Moy taught us, and through using the 5 animal forms, for those of you who are unaware of what they are, they're a series of movements that happen simultaneously that describe the body's position to allow for the qi and for circulation to do their work, to alchemically transform and purify the body. And what happens is quite remarkable, but you're able to take, through the practice of this, you're able to take that neuromatrix that you formed about your body with various trigger points of pain and gradually alter it to relieve the pain and to get a new perception of what the reality and truth is. I just put this up because I had referred to the stele at the White Cloud Temple in Beijing, the one that described the 3 gates, the 3 danqians. I don't know who I'm talking to because Ottawa, I'm looking at our group here and I'm not seeing the Ottawa group. And I don't know if that's those terminologies are known to you. I know Jim and Joe know them. But I just wanted to point out that that form that you saw in a fetal form as the stele from the White Cloud Temple, 13th century, was put on the screen and you imagined its flow. I just wanted to show you something of interest, is that if you look at Michelangelo's Sistine Chapels, the birth of man, and that's God, the creation. I want you to know that that was discovered by a medical student at McMaster in Hamilton, that it's an exact anatomical description of the human brain cut in a sagittal section. And so you can actually see the brainstem coming down. You can see the sulci at the cortex, and you can see the thalamic areas. They really do match when you go by it simply. The same is true for that stele. And what does it match? It matches a fetal anatomy. That's one of the reasons why I found that interesting, that the form that we're learning from Mr. Moy is the return to earlier heaven. It's the fetal circulatory pathway. Now, this is bizarre because the moment we take a breath in, the directions of the circulation change from our fetal circulation to our adult circulation. And over time, they desiccate, they disappear, they become very fragile, and they disappear, and they're not used as channels or as circulatory paths. And yet, there is a sensation that travels along those paths that are rather unique. And that's why I'm putting those 2 images up there. Next slide. I think we're going to have enough of slides, but this is a fellow, a biomedical engineer, really nice guy, interesting, who published, he was at the Jewish General Hospital in Montreal, who published a book on the spinal engine. And essentially, he made that very clear and aware that there is no locomotion without having a spine and a pelvis. And the greatest mass of the human body lies in that spine and pelvis. And so if you're able to you can increase and generate more energy, more force for the circulation to flow through that strange pathway that has a fetal origin. I still don't know what it is. It's not as if blood is running through there, but there is a sensation that happens, that you use the spine and the pelvis as the motor. You're turning on your car, the engine. And how that works is F equals ma on a one-dimensional scale. Force, energy, equals mass times acceleration. You can't change your mass. It's not weight, it's really the mass that you're given. But you can, with the exercises that we're practicing, change your cross-sectional mass. You can compress it and you can relax it and extend. That cross-sectional expansion and contraction gives you an amazing amount of force that is used for the circulation to bring us to the concept of what Tai Chi, the gift of Master Moy, in bringing this technique, this understanding, this way of being to us to practice and use. And the point is, if you don't use the force to push someone away, energy is neither created nor destroyed. You use the force to ramp up the circulation inside the body. The other thing that's vital is once you have the engine running, you have to know where to go. And the Tai Chi form that Mr. Moy diligently trained us and we're working on and will work on provides a roadmap to guide that energy flow that we are not using externally. Some of it we give off in heat, some with sweat, some of it has an external flow, but essentially it ramps up the circulation through the right route, the map that was created. And this causes the Jing and the Qi to bind together to purify through steam, through an energy of that nature. I think I'm getting to the point where I'll ask for questions. We have lots of more slides, but I don't remember what they are. So you want to just run through, see if there's anything. Oh, okay, stop for a second. There's always the question of, you know, I'm from Missouri, prove it to me, show it to me, whatever the expression is. And everybody asks for what are the studies? What does the literature show us? This is actually from Bruce McFarlane, published in the Canadian Family Physician Journal. And what he did was he reviewed the articles and showed the increased interest, a number of articles, more recently to 2000, much more. It doesn't matter the numbers. The reality is, as I asked G what Qi was, and when we get down to it, it's hard to describe, I want to ask you, what about the articles on Tai Chi? Is Tai Chi a singular movement? Can we use it as an independent variable? Or is it so different for every movement that any literature that says, oh, Tai Chi is good for this, and there's a couple of slides, we'll list them all, or is it just non-scientific? Because we don't have a proper control group, We don't know if the person teaching Tai Chi, we don't know if it's Tai Chi Chuan or Chi Kung or what form, what are the endpoints. And yet the world accepts, oh, look at this study on Tai Chi. So it's a moment that even though there's an increasing number of published studies that some show it's not effective, there's a preponderance that do for various issues and medical reasons. I don't think there's any data out there that we can extract truth from. There's a feel, there's an essence, there's a suggestion. And so we can go through the literature, which we won't, but at the end of the day, no one has ever saw the fragility that Tai Chi, while we use it, it's so individually based. There's a lot of us here that have been trained by Mr. Moy. And that one thing that Mr. Moy brought to the table was the standardization of movement. Very simplistically, the angles, the stretch, the sit, the spiral, which brings us to, we have a gift here. How do we maintain it? And I propose something to think about it. We maintain it with simplicity. We maintain it that we're not getting into circulating things. What can we do? How do we play Tai Chi? How do we use it to purify the Jing and whatnot? I propose that perhaps what we can do with great confidence, with reproducibility, is have the angles of the movement, have the dragon, the 5 animal forms, dragon, which is the extension and contraction of the vertebral column, the snake, which is the spiral in 2 directions, of that stretching slinky, the tiger, which is the muscular system of the body, which you need to strengthen and encourage to get the dragon and the snake to function. And you can only do it if you relax with the tiger and the relaxation in the tendons and ligaments, which brings us to the chi. And when you focus on the right angles, the right sequential movement, simultaneous but sequential in their patterns, then you generate that benefit that Mr. Moy has been teaching us. If we stick strictly to that and not to the, we can experience, we can generate, we can practice, we can share from that very humble source of beginning. And so I just want to end this to say it's incredible that we're able to have this communication and this connection, because as time passes, it's this connection that will sustain us. When we have questions, we can talk to each other. We have a common language, we have a common structure, and everything that follows, which is vast, is unknown cognitively, but we experience it within our bodies. And so it's important to have various communities that can come together cooperatively to ask these questions and learn from the experience of different communities, knowing that the core form and values are the same, the language is the same. So I think I hear Mr. Moy saying, stop talking, do Tai Chi. But I'd like to have people address, if anything has come up, ask some questions. And if there can be some crosstalk between Ottawa and Wales, sorry, Ottawa and Newport, they're cities, that we begin to engage and see how that feels and works. And if there are questions that are puzzling, that don't have answers, maybe there can be a shared phenomenon between the two. Thanks.